thank you guys for joining us and taking a little bit of time out of your day to go through the Cisco Stop Overspending on SmartNet webinar with Service Express. This webinar is for the customers wanting to learn a little bit more about a third-party or hybrid solution to help support your Cisco devices. With that said, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Cody Poltrock. I'm the Production Lab and Quality Assurance Manager here at Service Express. And with me and hosting a big chunk of this Cisco presentation is Pete Tarrin, who is our Director of Strategic Services, who has spearheaded this effort on behalf of Service Express and oversees our entire Cisco network offering. For those of you who don't know, I'm assuming most of you are already customers or at least have a dedicated sales rep who have talked to you about what Service Express is and who we are. But for those of you who are not overly familiar, we are a data center maintenance company who specializes in third-party maintenance for the equipment that you house in your data center. Along with that, we also do a bit of asset management, asset recovery, and hardware sales as kind of nice side supplements to what our primary core business is. But at our heart, we're a data center maintenance company. And the reason you're here today is because a big part of that is your Cisco environment. What we're going to cover today is the Cisco network equipment lifecycle and what that looks like and kind of the verbiage around it. We're going to cover the pros and cons of SmartNet and also the pros and cons for Service Express and our offering, and explain to you how we kind of approach this with more of a hybrid approach than a full-fledged end-to-end, and then also to assist you in evaluating your options to help best suit what your needs might be. And without further ado, I have Pete Tarrin here, who's going to begin talking about Cisco.
Thank you, Cody. And I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules for us this afternoon. We are just very thankful to have the opportunity to just have a little bit of your time. Our goal is to make this informative for you, maybe a little bit fun, and really we would love to find a way to make your job easier. We believe we can do that and hope to prove that here over the next 20 minutes or so. If this is going to be a review for a lot of people, if you're a Cisco customer, you're probably very familiar with the life cycle of your equipment, but we want to discuss it at a very high level and point out a couple of important parts of this. So starting on the left of your screen, you have the release date of the equipment and then a point where the initial warranty coverage ends, followed by several other announcements that come out. We don't have them all included here, but the important ones that are important to us, we have outlined. So there's an end of software maintenance date. And what that means is once that date has come and gone, Cisco is no longer releasing iOS updates for that device. And as we go on to describe what Service Express does from a network maintenance standpoint, that date becomes very important. Another important date would be the last day of support. If you were to place a call with Cisco on that equipment, they would not help you, to be very straightforward. They just plain won't take the call. They'll take their call, but they'll say, sorry, we can't help you out. Service Express, because we're a third-party maintenance provider, we're not held to those same restrictions. We actually support a ton of equipment that has reached that last day of support. If you're familiar with network equipment, especially on the Cisco side, it lasts a very long time. So this equipment is useful for a decade. And the last day of support is usually about 5 or so years into the lifespan of that device. So it can run and do a great job for you for years beyond that date. And we can help you with that. So as we go through the rest of the animations here, we talk about this decision point. We see you having three options once that initial warranty coverage ends. You can refresh the equipment. This is probably the most expensive of your options. This is what Cisco would love for you to do. And you've probably been approached by your rep at Cisco several times about, hey, when are you going to upgrade this or that? This is how the company makes money. Of course, they want to push you into new gear. And maybe that's the best option for some of your equipment. And maybe there's other equipment that works great and you don't want to refresh it. So then you can decide to renew your SmartNet agreement. This is also very costly. The cost for SmartNet typically goes up each year once you get past that initial warranty coverage ending. Again, as that cost goes up, it's more incentive and a way for Cisco to get you to refresh equipment that you would love to keep running if you had the choice. So what we really want to talk about and highlight is what we call a hybrid approach. With a hybrid approach, you're going to keep some of your equipment with Cisco on a SmartNet agreement, and you're going to bring some of that equipment to Service Express. A lot of that equipment would be stuff that's past that end of software date. They're no longer releasing iOS updates, so what's the advantage at that point of keeping the equipment with Cisco? The next two slides here are just going to be pros and cons of keeping your equipment with SmartNet. So if you have SmartNet coverage on your equipment, you place a call for tax support, you're going to be talking to a Cisco certified engineer. They've gone through all the certifications, they're CCNA, CCNP, CCIEs, things like that, depending on the type of support you want. You're getting replacement parts from Cisco. They're most likely delivering those to your location and you're replacing that equipment yourself. I do want to dispel one misconception here, and that is a lot of customers believe that Cisco is replacing that hardware with brand new hardware fresh off the assembly line, and that's actually not the case. They're typically replacing your hardware with refurbished hardware that has been thoroughly tested. They stand behind it, and it works great, but it's not brand new. And also software access. This is something that is very important for customers, and it's included with your SmartNet agreement. But again, we want to keep in mind which pieces of equipment in your environment are still even getting those updates from Cisco. Some of the challenges you have as a SmartNet customer, one of them being cost. And this is something we hear from a lot of our customers. We have hundreds of customers that we're currently maintaining on the network side, and a lot of them, when we first met with them and did that needs analysis, they brought up the high cost of keeping that equipment with SmartNet. Another issue that people have run into is going through the tiers of support and sometimes waiting hours for an engineer to engage with them. If you've had to place a call with Cisco, when you place that call, you have to give them some type of a severity. And if your severity 1 network is down, and you can typically get someone to respond pretty quickly. But if you're anything less than a system down, it can take a couple hours before an engineer will call you back and start working on it. And that's, depending on what's going on, that can be problematic. And lack of contract flexibility is something that we hear a lot. Customers would love to have the ability to take equipment off of the agreement that they're no longer using or is no longer useful for them. But if you have signed a multi-year agreement and you want to take that equipment off, you're going to pay some kind of a penalty to do that, to the point where you might as well just keep it on the agreement even though you're not using it, and you're going to continue to pay for it after that. So we do have one poll question here. We'd love for you guys to answer today, so I'm going to let Cody jump in.
Yeah, so this is an interactive poll. So if you could take a quick second to answer this one. What do you most frequently use your Cisco contract support for right now?
So it looks like a good portion of you are using it primarily for tax support. Another good chunk for the iOS updates, and almost equal thirds really, as far as all of the above. So that's important. For those of you that responded that you're using it for tax support primarily, that it makes me think that your equipment would be a good candidate for our support. Maybe you're not using it as much for updates. You don't do a lot of updating, and because we're a third-party provider, we're not able to provide those for you. So yeah, if it comes to tax support, that's something we can help you with. So let's move on. We're going to do a couple of slides here on the pros and the one con of working with Service Express for your network support. We talked about the high cost of SmartNet maintenance. You're definitely going to see cost savings to move your network equipment to Service Express support. We have a lot of customers who are 30 to 40% off list. We have a bunch of customers who are even 50% off and more. A lot of that depends on the size of the agreement, where you can get some discounts there, but definitely some cost savings. Locally stocked parts, so we want to make sure that we're meeting all of the SLAs. So once we have the equipment list and you add that equipment to the agreement, we put our logistics team into action, and they're making sure that they're sparing locally for your agreement. Flexible agreements is a definite strength of working with Service Express. If you're on this webinar, there's a good chance we might be doing your servers and storage. So you've probably already got to experience what it's like working with us from an agreement standpoint. Whereas I mentioned with Cisco, there's going to be a penalty for trying to remove a piece of equipment early from the agreement. With any equipment that you put on agreement with Service Express, you get a 30-day out, no questions asked. It's as easy as sending an email to your account executive, and then you'll get something back very promptly saying, message received, and we're going to take that off next month, no problem. And it's just as easy to add equipment as well. A simple email, this is what I need covered, I want it to start here, and it gets added very quickly. So I just really can't say enough about our internal teams and how easy they are to work with and how flexible those agreements can be. And very prompt callbacks. For every customer, whether you're a network customer or not, we promise you a 30-minute callback once you place that initial call. And that's just, what we put on paper is 30 minutes. We do measure that, and on average, we're somewhere between, I think, 7 and 10 minutes is when we actually respond. And that's not just some random person calling you back. That's the engineer that you're going to be working with calling you back. And that's whether it's network down or I have a question about this and it's not urgent, someone's calling you back very quickly, and we're very proud of that number. A little bit more about responsiveness. When you do call in to Service Express, you're going to get a Service Express employee answering the phone. These are all direct employees of ours. They're all located around our headquarters here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and that's 24/7. So no matter when you call in, you're going to speak to someone who has access to your agreement. They're going to have a lot of knowledge about Service Express and can answer a bunch of your questions no matter what time of day you call in. And we do have a portal as well that's not mentioned on here, but the portal is a great way to log support tickets. It's a way that you can look at call history. They're making a bunch of improvements and are testing those now. The portal is a great way to interact with Service Express if you're one of those people who would rather do something online versus calling in. The other bullet point here that we have is that 90% first-time fix rate. And the way that we're able to achieve that is we have our own Cisco certified engineers. They're very knowledgeable about the equipment. We're also locally sparing your equipment as well. There's tons of training that goes on. We're making sure that the agreement is very accurate. So that 90% first-time fix rate is something that we're happy to deliver to you on your network equipment. This is by far the most common question that comes up when we talk to customers about their network equipment. And going back to the poll question that we had, it was a pretty good percentage of people who are primarily using SmartNet for iOS updates. And that's great. You need to do what's best for you and your environment. So when we're talking about taking on your support, and I'm going to bring up that hybrid approach again, we're not saying give us all of your network equipment. As a matter of fact, if you were to give us your equipment list, it's likely that there's going to be a few pieces on there that we're going to come back to you and we're going to say we recommend not moving that to third-party support. We want to really take a consultative approach to your agreement and work with you to figure out what's best. So it's going to be some kind of a mix of keep this equipment with Cisco and bring this equipment to Service Express. And I think I just jumped ahead a slide, which we're going to talk about here in a second. So as a third-party maintainer, Service Express is not able to provide any kind of code to any of our customers. So it is a limitation of ours, but it doesn't mean that we can't help you out. Let's talk about the equipment that's past that end of software maintenance date and look at bringing that to our support and allowing us to help you out there. And as I just foreshadowed, we're going to be talking about the hybrid approach here, and just a graphic that helps kind of illustrate that. So you've got the stuff that we're going to recommend you keep with Cisco is typically newer gear. It might even be some of the core gear that you feel is very critical to your operations. You want to make sure that you have access to iOS updates and things like that. And then the stuff that we're going to say, hey, this is a great fit for Service Express support is going to be that end of software. It's typically a larger chunk of your environment once you really break it down and look at it from a high level. Your switches, your routers, your edge devices. Although we do maintain some core gear. There are some customers where we're doing their Nexus 7Ks and 9Ks and their ASAs. It's just what works best for that particular customer. So that's why we just want to have a conversation with you, and we can make recommendations, and then we can, figure out what works for everyone. We want to share just a couple of our current customer examples here with you. We're going to talk about the challenge that was presented to us from the customer and how we addressed that, and then what kind of savings we were able to provide to the customer. So in our first example here, this customer came to us and said, we need to trim some money out of our budget. We have a pretty decent sized network environment. Cisco is telling us we need to upgrade our 3750X switches. They also had a lot of locations where they did not have technical people. So this is a big challenge for them, and some of you may be experiencing this now. So if you have network equipment in an off-campus site, you don't have a technical person there, you're currently a SmartNet customer, they'll send the replacement switch to your site, but unless you're paying the extra money for on-site support, you have to replace that equipment yourself. If it's going to your headquarters where all of your technical people are at, it's probably a lot easier. But a lot of our customers we've talked to, they say, we don't have technical people there. So we end up having to fly someone from corporate out to one of these regional offices to do the installation. And as you can imagine, there's cost that comes along with that, right? So there's the cost of flights, maybe a hotel room, a per diem, and this person who you're sending out is now spending time away from their family. So all those costs adds up. So we want to help with that. So what we ended up doing with this customer is they moved a lot of their edge equipment to Service Express under our support. And by doing so, they were able to save enough money to then go and renew SmartNet on their core devices. So they were able to really have that hybrid model that we've been talking about. The equipment that they brought to Service Express is still in use for several years longer than what Cisco was telling them that they should be using it. And so what we're doing is, as a part of our network maintenance, we're including an on-site engineer in that. We're not going to charge you extra to send an engineer to site. So these people, this company no longer needs to fly someone out to do the replacement. We send the part and the engineer to site. We take care of that headache for you, save you money that doesn't show up on the maintenance sheet, but it does show up in other areas of your budget of having to fly people around and put them up in hotels and things like that. From a savings standpoint, a significant savings of 61%. It saved them close to $28,000 for the year. So very, very happy customer there, and an IT director who looks pretty good in shaving off a bunch of money out of the budget. We want to share one more example with you too. So this customer had a lot of end-of-life equipment, catalysts and some ASAs. And again, they were getting pressure from Cisco to refresh, right? They keep pushing, and you've all experienced that. I'm preaching to the choir, I'm sure. So we were able to help this customer out. We lowered their maintenance costs, and they took real full advantage of our portal. So what they're doing is they're using our portal, easy for me to say, they're using our portal not just as a way to place service tickets, but they're using it as an asset management tool. It was not originally intended to do that, but with some of the modifications that we've made, it's a lot easier to use this as a way to look at your assets. So instead of having their own internal tool, they can go to the Service Express portal and see everything in their data center and use it as a way to see those assets. And our local engineers right there in Houston are there to do the on-site replacements for this customer, which they find to be a big benefit. From a savings standpoint, they must have had a better negotiator because they got 70% of a reduction off of what they were currently paying with SmartNet, and close to $200,000 in savings. Now, what you decide to do with those savings is totally up to you. You can buy new gear. You can maybe hire additional staff, maybe a pool table in the data center. I'm not sure how you would. I know how I would spend it. But this is when I led off the conversation here, I said that we wanted to find a way to make your jobs easier, and I think this is a big way to do it. If we can let you be more creative with your budget by saving you money, providing the same level of service. I want to be mindful of that. Even though you're paying less, you're not getting less. We have Cisco certified engineers as well. They've gone through all the same certifications that the ones go through that you talk to that are at Cisco. Very highly qualified. They take great care of our customers. So you're just spending less, and you have additional money to spend in other places. One more graphic here to just kind of put everything side by side. So with Service Express, as I mentioned before, you're getting an on-site engineer included in the maintenance. You're not going to pay extra for that. You do have to pay extra if you want an engineer on site with SmartNet. 24/7, 365 tax support offered by both companies. Again, that tax support is coming from Cisco certified engineers. Parts replacement we talked about. Bug fixes and patches we have not talked about, but I believe someone had entered a question in online already asking about that. So again, we don't provide those, but if you have a Cisco login, you have access to bug fixes, vulnerabilities as they come out. Those are still available even without a SmartNet agreement. So hopefully that addresses the question of the person who submitted that here online. So that's would be with both companies. iOS updates, we can't provide them. Those are included in your SmartNet agreement. We want to just talk to you about the devices in your environment that are no longer receiving those updates. So at that point, we're on pretty level footing with Cisco. iOS upgrades is something you would be paying Cisco for, even if you were a SmartNet customer, and if you needed those, you would still work with Cisco to get those upgrades. So I've been talking here for about 20 minutes, and you're probably wondering, okay, now what do I do? Hopefully you think that what I've been talking about sounds great, is something that you're interested in, and you'd like to know what the next steps are. This is what we would love for you to do. We would love for you to pull a list of your current network equipment. Give that list to your account executive, who I assume is going to be following up with you after the webinar, or somebody from the marketing team. I'm looking at all of them now. I'm seeing nodding heads. If you give us the list, we're going to give that list back to you in a format that's very easy to follow. And that's why we have the red, yellow, and green on the screen right now. The equipment's going to come back color-coded. So the equipment that's listed green, we highly recommend moving to Service Express network support. That's going to be the equipment that is past that end of software maintenance day. They're no longer releasing iOS updates for that equipment. If you have SmartNet on that equipment right now, you're paying for updates that you're not getting. So we look at that as, why would you continue to pay the high cost of SmartNet when you can come to us, reduce your cost, get the parts replacement, the tax support, and you should be good from there, because they're not going to be releasing any other iOS updates anyway. Yellow is typically going to indicate that end of software date has been announced, but we haven't reached that date yet. For a lot of your edge gear, you're probably not going to update it, even though there could be other updates coming. So that's something that you can move over. And then red is going to be that newer equipment, maybe some of your core devices that you want to keep with Cisco. It's really that easy. So you give us the list, we process it, takes a day or two, we ship it back, we have a conversation, and we really talk from a consultative standpoint to say, what is going to work best for your environment.
Can Service Express provide support for my international locations?
The answer is yes. We have had a lot of success over the past few years taking care of our customers' international equipment. That goes for server, storage, and network, but we have a very robust presence overseas to be able to provide that support.
And then the other one was, how does Service Express handle escalations?
So we have an escalation procedure that we have mapped out. So if you're a customer of ours, you may have already seen that. What I think is great about our escalation is we don't follow we don't make you wait 2 hours before we bump you up to the next tier of escalation. If you call and you say my equipment's down or the building's on fire, like you're going to get escalated to management right away. We're going to react in proportion to the way that you approach us. But that escalation, we take that very seriously here, and we escalate very quickly.
So thanks again for your time, and we look forward to working with you.